Recently, the World Bank has released a report regarding Pakistan's economy, and it has made certain interesting observations. One, of course, that I'll begin with, World Bank has described the current economic situation as deeply concerning. Can you elaborate?
Sure. I mean, the situation at the moment is we've had negative growth last year. We're looking at low growth next year. We have a population growth rate of 2.5%, while the economy is only expected to grow by about 1.5%. So that means, on average, incomes are falling. And what we've seen over the past year, based on our best estimates, is that the poverty rate has increased by 5 percentage points. So we're now at about 40% of poverty. And that means that about 12 million Pakistanis actually fell into poverty in the last year. We know the economy is still reliant on the IMF SBA program, and external reserves remain at very low levels, about 1.6 months, and are on a downward trajectory. So whatever is happening in the economy at the moment is clearly not serving the majority of Pakistanis well.
So Tobias, you have mentioned a very alarming figure, and that is 2.5% population growth rate, and your projection for the economic growth rate for this fiscal year is 1.9%. So that means there will be higher poverty, higher unemployment in this fiscal year as well. So here comes your critical policy notes. So you have recommended that Pakistan needs to make a policy shift. What kind of shift you are talking about, and why at this point in time?
No, that's an excellent question. I mean, what we are saying essentially is that this is not the time for tinkering. This is not the time for minor change. This is the time for fundamental policy shifts. And what we've talked about at the conference over the weekend, and what we're talking about in these policy notes, is shifts in 5 fundamental areas. So the first is to do something about human development outcomes. We have 40% of Pakistani children stunted. We have 80% of 10-year-olds unable to read, even if they're in the schooling system. We have 7% of children dying before their 5th birthday. These kind of human development outcomes really fundamentally undermine the productive potential of the economy. So it's a human crisis, but it's also an economic crisis. So we need to do something about that. That's the first. The second, we have these unsustainable fiscal deficits. We are spending on consumption. We are taxing a very narrow tax base, and that is undermining the productive potential of the economy as well. We have a private sector that is very narrow. It's focused on the domestic market rather than focused on exports, rather than focused on dynamic growth. And we have issues in the energy sector where we have very high energy prices, where we have very inefficient generation of energy, very inefficient distribution of energy. And we have fundamental issues in the agricultural sector as well, where essentially you've had a very hands-on approach by government over many years. You've had subsidies, price controls. That's been aimed at ensuring food security, but what it's actually done is locked production into certain crops using certain methods, and it's prevented the private sector from